Emotional freedom technique, also known as EFT or tapping. We get into it this week. Hope you enjoy it.
Welcome to the Wellness Empowerment Project. I'm Trish.
And I'm Julie. We are two nurses exploring holistic healing and wellness practices to empower you to be the leader of your own health. Join us as we try out new things, or as we call it, weird shit, and have some fun along the way.
Hello, and welcome to the Wellness Empowerment Project. This is Trish, and I'm not completely alone today. Unfortunately, Julie is out sick, and we send her our well wishes. But today we're going to be interviewing Amy Piper. Amy Piper is a certified EFT practitioner and treater in Los Angeles. She has been working with people virtually and in one-on-one sessions for over 15 years. She personally was stunned by the quickness in which old beliefs, patterns, and obstacles could be released and cleared. Having direct experience with this transformational work, she felt called to become trained and certified all the way back in 2016. Amy is formally educated as a speech and language pathologist. She completed her master's in speech sciences and embarked on this career over 20 years ago. She enjoyed working with people specializing in the area of brain injury and trauma within speech pathology, however, felt that something was missing. Her career involved working primarily with people who had experienced a traumatic event as part of a rehabilitation team of professionals. So when she encountered EFT, she realized this was the piece that had been missing. EFT has the power to heal traumatic experiences and memories that are held in the body and in the energy system. Amy is also certified in Kundalini Yoga and commits herself to a daily meditation practice to remain grounded and allow the flow of intuition to guide her with her client session. Welcome, Amy.
Hello, glad to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm happy to talk and share everything.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your personal journey of how you found EFT?
Yes, of course. I was a client first. And as you were saying, I experienced such a direct result and a quick result from this technique. I was a client for several years. And then I said, wait a minute, this is amazing. Why am I not why am I not getting trained in this and working with others? Because just feeling that transformation so quickly. I had been in a relationship that ended very suddenly and dramatically and was very depressed afterward for maybe about a year and wasn't really able to date or get back out there. It was very kind of broken heart. Someone recommended a life coach of sorts. So I went to her and she had me do EFT. She had me tap, and I didn't know what it was at the time. Really have the popularity it does now. I would just tap on these acupressure points and really release the grief. It was such a quick shift for me, experiencing the lightness of it all and then releasing some old patterns that I'd had. I wanted to share it with others. That's when I went into it and got trained myself.
Wow. So you were experiencing some depression from a relationship. And
Yeah.
I think it's fascinating that a friend of yours suggested first a life coach and not a therapist. Or were you trying all those already? Was it just not making a shift for you?
Yeah, I think earlier in my life, probably in my 20s, I tried through different hardships in my life, maybe traditional therapy. I never really, but for me personally, I think it definitely has its place for sure, but it would get me to a certain place and I wouldn't quite, then I would be done. I never really felt it would reach a certain endpoint for me. And so when this happened, when I was, quite devastated about this relationship ending, I was looking for something different. I was looking for this had happened to me a couple times before, a very similar experience. The way in this relationship unfolded and ended quickly, it wasn't the first time. I said, okay, wait a minute, something's happening here. This is almost uncanny, the similarity in this way this is happening. What's going on here? Is there something I'm not seeing? I was looking for an alternative modality, and that's how I found she was like an intuitive coach who also did EFT. When this person said, oh, this friend of mine, this woman's amazing. You should talk to her. I really didn't know what I was getting into, but I knew after, I think it was 3 sessions I'd had, I was back dating. I was feeling great. I actually met someone very quickly
Wow.
and started a relationship, a very healthy one, because not only did I release the grief of this relationship that didn't work, I also released a pattern that I was in where you keep getting the lesson, but I wasn't quite getting it.
Yeah.
And I was stuck in these patterns. And with the EFT, which I'm sure we'll talk about today, not only does it help you release the emotion of something. So I was releasing grief of this relationship. I thought I was going to be marrying this man, and that is not what happened. Then also figuring out why is this happening? Why am I in this pattern? And that to me is just the really amazing thing, is breaking a pattern and then really never encountering that again after I'd had these sessions.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you already recognized that there was a pattern in your life, and you already noticed that their therapy only went so deep. It never seemed to get to the roots.
Correct. Mhm.
And I think that makes sense, right? Because a lot of us, we may recognize we have a pattern in our life, but if we're not sure why that pattern's occurring, it's difficult to get deeper and to get to the root cause of it. And it sounds like EF tapping actually enabled you to get to that root cause.
Yeah. I think the way that this was explained to me by a mentor is that, like, a traditional therapy model might be a top down approach. So we're dealing with the neocortex, the rational brain. And that is important. We do need to think and analyze and understand things. But then where EFT comes in is it's more of a bottom up approach. So actually, with the tapping, we're hacking into the limbic brain. So below the level of that neocortex, below that kind of rational mind, we're getting into the emotional brain. You can just think of it that way, limbic, emotional brain. We're getting into that area where memory is held, fight or flight, the freeze response, some of these autonomic responses, especially where painful memories are held. With the tapping, you're getting in there and smoothing out that disruption at a deeper level than you might if you were staying up here in the kind of rational mind. That makes sense.
No, that does make sense. We definitely talk a lot about the top down versus bottom up approaches here. It's fascinating how there's so many different practices out there that are coming out that are more of the bottom up type practices.
Yeah.
Can you tell me, how did this experience work for you? How do you feel like this worked through? You said in 3 sessions, you already noticed this shift. What is occurring during these sessions? How is this coming up to the awareness? Do you take any action steps afterwards? Just give us a little more of a taste
Yeah.
of what is it exactly? What is it comprised of?
Sure. I could talk about my experience or how I work with clients. It's the same. What's happening with EFT or emotional freedom techniques? You'll probably hear me refer to it as tapping, but the formal word is EFT. Is we're basically getting in. What I love about it is you're presenting a problem. Let's say for me, it was I'm devastated from this breakup, or someone might come to me and say, maybe they're having panic attacks. That's a common one. They come to you or to me with a presenting problem. We start there. We start with, I'm not digging yet. I'm not like, tell me about your childhood. No, they're coming to me because let's say they're having panic attacks. Maybe they have a fear of flying. Maybe they have a phobia. They have a presenting issue that they want to work on. We are starting there. What we'll do is I'll get some statements from them and they're going to tell me all about how they feel. I'm writing it down. I'm writing their words down. This is very important with the EFT process. I want listeners to understand that as a practitioner, I'm using their words because they hold really key meanings. We begin to tap on the presenting problem. So let's say it is panic attacks. I think that's something people can relate to. We start tapping on that and we tap through the points. I can go over those. I know the listeners, I can describe where these tapping points are, but they're always the same point. They don't change no matter what your problem. So you're always tapping on these series of points. As we do that, every 2 to 3 rounds, we stop and we check in. What usually happens is it really is like peeling back the layers of an onion. We start to uncover, why is this happening? Okay. For an example, like panic attacks. When did I start having these? What was going on in my life at the time when this started? Did I ever not have these? As we're tapping, we're relaxing the nervous system, we're decreasing cortisol, we're getting the body in a calm state. What happens is we start accessing memories and we also start connecting the dots about this existing problem. As we continue, we tap every 2 to 3 rounds, we're stopping and checking in. And usually something else will come up, some other layer of this. What's really beautiful, what I love the most about it is it's so organic. It just now the tool does the work. It helps to be with a skilled practitioner, of course, but you're peeling back the layers on something in such an organic way to get to the root of it. That's just what I love the most about it. So sessions typically are 90 minutes. In that, you're doing a series of tapping and then stopping and talking, tapping and talking. But you're actually tapping and verbalizing at the same time. Yeah. To get to that limbic brain, that nonverbal part of the brain, we're tapping these specific acupressure points.
It sounds, since we are moving the body into that more relaxed state, that when these memories come up, they're not, I hate to say the word, but they're not traumatic. They're not, they're not coming up and you're not like, oh my gosh, and starting to relive that. It sounds like when they come up in this more relaxed state, you're able just to see it more almost like as a third party viewer.
Yeah. I'm so glad you mentioned that. Thank you. That's another, I'll probably say this a lot, what I love about EFT. I probably say it all the time, but another thing I love about it is that one of my teachers says you're opening up the can of worms, but you're doing it in a controlled way while the body is staying relaxed. So exactly what you just said. We are getting into it. Memories are going to come up, but let's do it in a way while tapping. We don't have to go into that fight or flight, all these responses that our body has learned to do, hypervigilance, whatever the thing is. We can do it in this way where we're down regulating the whole system. So we can open up that box of, oh boy, I had some really bad things happen to me in my life, or I had some traumatic experiences as a child, let's say. But we're opening it up in a container that's down regulating everything. So it does feel safe to go there. Makes sense.
No, that makes complete sense.
Yeah.
Then what? I mean, you went through the steps, right? You do your tapping. We figure out what this root cause is.
Yeah. Maybe the next.
Is there a next step afterwards, or do you
What
use tapping to come up with what is best for you to move through?
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. This is good. These are things that I forget to say. This is perfect. Great questions. When you come with the presenting problem, so a client comes to me and says, this is my problem, X, Y, and Z. Okay. We start tapping on it. Oftentimes we'll get to that root issue, which sometimes is not the presenting problem.
Yeah.
Okay. It's actually something else. What I like about it is when you say what's next, typically we're trying to get to the what's underneath this presenting issue. Is there a negative core belief involved? Is there a negative limiting belief involved that we need to rewrite? Sometimes it might not involve, right, a core negative belief. It could just be a traumatic experience that you had and we want to release it. Other times it could be the current problem is a long running pattern in your life. Okay. Take me, for example. Hey, I just had a difficult breakup. I'm really devastated. When I took a look deeper, this was not the first time. This had been a recurring pattern because of something I needed to heal. There was a root to it. Oftentimes you'll find that when someone comes to me for a certain problem, that it actually is, there is a pattern there, or there is an underlying core belief. Within that session, we always say we're on an expedition to say, what's behind this? Let's tap to get to the truth of it. If obviously you would, if there was at the end of a session, we're getting to what's underneath everything, people can come back for another session, but we're hoping that we're actually working through things each session. It isn't set up to come once a week for a year. That's not the model of EFT. You might come for a certain problem. Let's say you came for 3, 6, 9 sessions. You get to a place of understanding and feeling better. A few months later, a client might come back and say, what? Now I want to work on this other thing in my life. I do have people coming back, but hopefully for something different. We want to work through the thing they came for. Now, life is always happening. So people do come back to work on other things that they want to work through.
So it seems like a lot of the patterns and things that we're working through is really we're trying to change a core belief that possibly core belief that we have, whether it stems from a traumatic event in childhood or whatnot, could be a reason of why we've started these different patterns in our life. That obviously, if we're coming to you at this point, we know that they're not helpful and we want that to shift.
Yeah, exactly.
Is it, or have you had clients come with a particular problem? You got down to a core belief, work through it, and come back and realize that actually that problem didn't go away because they actually had another belief that didn't come up? Could you have multiple beliefs about a particular problem?
I'm thinking about this one. Sorry. Let me think here. You could have more than one, I suppose. Really, my job in working with the client, we always say we're co-practitioners, right? We're working together. You're hoping to get to that in that. So you're hoping if someone comes back and says, "Hey, I've had a lot of progress, but I'm still hung up on a few things."
Yes.
Then I say, "You know what? There's more here. Let's get back in it." Yeah. So that could be a good example of, hey, I really I feel like I'm shifting, still hung up on a few things. Can we work through this? Maybe there's another aspect or layer we haven't gotten to. That can happen. Definitely. We're hoping to plow through it all, but sometimes there might be another aspect to excuse me, of a memory that we need to address. Let's say the belief was the world is not a safe place or I'm unlovable. Honestly, that's quite common. Is a core belief comes up that I am just not a lovable person at my root core, which is heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to see someone carrying that around and going through life believing that. But there might be more than one core belief around a certain memory or experience. Yes. And you'd want to make sure you got to that.
Wow. Sounds powerful, to say the very least. You spoke to its power when you spoke about the fact that you were also a speech pathologist and you felt like EFT was a big missing link. Do you mind telling us how did you put the link together between speech pathology and EFT? What have you saw with those transformational experiences?
I think it was more of seeing what was missing in this kind of medical system because I worked in, acute and subacute rehab centers. These are folks that this one in particular, I was living in Michigan, so it primarily served brain injured people who'd suffered either an auto accident, a brain injury from a fall or some sort of mishap or a stroke. But when I was working with someone on their speech and their cognition, it felt like this little tiny thing that I was working on. But the elephant in the room or the big thing was this person had gone through a massive accident. Their family was seriously traumatized. They're dealing with this person that was fine and now is sometimes at certain points in a semi-comatose state, not well. And you could see, I would often feel, before I knew about EFT, I would often think, here I am working on this. And I want to be careful, but speech pathology is an incredible career. And I'm happy that I went into it and I respect my colleagues so much. But sometimes I felt like I wasn't working on the emotional part of what these people had gone through. And really, not only the patient, but the family
Oh,
that was
100%.
watching, the spouse, or if it was a child, the parents, and even an adult child, and their parents are there. It was like, wow, it just felt I felt this need to work more holistically and outside of speech pathology, but that wasn't my place. I needed to stay in this field of what I knew and was trained in and educated in. But I often felt, oh my gosh, these people need work. The emotional part, the trauma that really a whole family is affected by these injuries.
As I'm a nurse, I worked in trauma actually for a number of years, specifically in the critical care unit. You reminded me, I remember this patient was there and he had a tube in his throat to help him breathe and was hooked up to all these things. And his family was there. They were devastated. His mother was there and she was devastated. She didn't want to leave his side at all the whole time, but you could tell that she was getting sicker the longer she was keeping herself there. I remember we had to have a conversation at one point that was, listen, you can only be here so much for him right now in this state. When he gets to the step down unit and the floor, he's going to have to be participating a lot more in his care and his treatment. He's going to need you there for that emotional support as he tries to relearn how to do all these different things. When you're speaking about this, it reminds me of that particular situation, how the families want to be there for them. But when you're not taking care of yourself in those matters, you decrease your own capacity to be there in other parts of the journey. It's a healing journey, whether you went through a traumatic accident or you have like really toxic relationship patterns, or I think you mentioned panic attacks, anxiety. Bringing yourself back to that state of health and wellness, it's a journey, whatever way that you look at it.
Absolutely. I love that you're a nurse because you do understand that and seeing what's missing sometimes in these situations of the emotional part, the importance of that. And what I think is so great about this modality, I like that it allows you to feel, but by that we're not saying, oh, everything's fine and throwing in positive thoughts. Because the whole idea of EFT is you're tapping and verbalizing the problem out loud to release it. In that, you're getting to feel too. And then naturally, as you release it, you can be more positive. But if I just said, life is great, everything's good, and I'm experiencing deep grief, it's not going to work. Positive thinking actually can't really get in there and do its job because I'm heavy with this negative thought pattern. If we tap and we're allowed to, I always joke, clients always are saying that I make them cry. But anyway, we start tapping and the emotion comes. And I'm thinking, I'm over here saying, great, thank God. Or if they get angry, not at me, but if the anger comes up about the thing or a certain person, I'm thinking, this is great. You're feeling it. We're verbalizing it. We're going to move through it. As long as the emotions are moving, we're okay. It's when they get stuck that's the problem. That's where the problem is. Love that allows you to feel, verbalize, acknowledge, and then let it go. That's what's really neat about it.
It sounds like the whole experience is just create this safe space for someone to do.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how I feel about it.
What particular clients do you tend to focus on? I'm sure EFT, I feel like you could just help anyone and everyone in EFT using this modality. But is there a type of client you like to work with? Are there other modalities you like to use that help shift, people's perspectives or their state?
It's a great question. I think in my first few years, I was helping anybody and everybody. I still, of course, would take a client no matter what their problem, but I do like to work in relationships, either if they're, I think because that's what my transformation was
Yes.
with really, and really having healthier one. And I'm sorry, I'm speaking of romantic relationships, having a healthier one after EFT. But I like to work on relationships, not just romantic, but with parents, siblings, partners, so romantic ones, all of it. I think relationships really, they always say it's the mirror. And
Yes.
so when someone is struggling, maybe with their spouse or partner and trying to figure out, is this going to work? Or if they're married, do we need to part ways or can this work out? If they're dating in a relationship, do we need to break up? And EFT allows you to get clear and then maybe clear your own stuff so you can really see, is this relationship going to work or not? I like to help people who are in relationship. I love helping people heal from breakups. I think it's so powerful to get them to a higher place before they start dating again. And then also relationships, maybe with a boss, coworkers. I've had some interesting things where I'll have a client come to me because they're struggling with their boss. Okay. That's where we begin the session. This person's having trouble with their boss. But as we're tapping, other things come up. Who does your boss remind you of? Is your boss standing in and reminding you of your mother or father, or maybe an authority figure from your, oftentimes it's interesting when we start tapping to figure out what's going on here. Has this client had difficulty with previous management, not just this boss? We're looking and the client will go, gosh, I've had this problem before at jobs. And so we're looking at these different patterns. I really love working with relationships, but the kind of clients I have, I work with people that have chronic health problems, autoimmune issues, things like that, and really anything, phobias, anxiety, depression, various health issues, sometimes weight loss, if that's their goal or if they're struggling with that. And so really it works on everything. But I'd say my joy is to work on relationships. I think that's really fun.
When you mentioned working on relationships, have you ever worked with an actual couple, like two people? Or has it always just been one person coming?
Great question. Yeah. With EFT, you do have to work one on one. It works best. Not that you couldn't have a group. I do group EFT, but with a couple, I would work with them separately. And yes, I have done that. I have done that. Or sometimes if we feel like it would be maybe I'll have a colleague work with the one, I'll work with the other one. But I've also worked with both, but in definitely just one-on-one sessions with the
In
tapping.
different sessions.
Yeah,
Because
because
being with the purpose of we want to use EFT to help heal our relationship.
exactly. And I think it's amazing. But sometimes, I want to make sure I say this is that even if the partner isn't doing EFT and just the one person is with me, things can still change because that person is changing. And with them changing themselves, they might get a different version of their partner because they're changing. And now we're going to see, will the partner change?
Yeah.
If you change your patterns. Now, not always. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. I do think it's amazing. And it just seems like such a miracle when you see a shift in a relationship. The one person's just doing the EFT.
I think that's absolutely beautiful. And I can attest to that. I had a very similar experience in my journey with Kundalini yoga and how when I changed, my relationship did change and it did a complete 180. It really speaks to how powerful we are as individuals, that if we make the change within ourselves, it can change the environment that we're in, the relationships that we have. The other person may not be doing the same thing or even on the same journey, but it will transform the relationship. Maybe they start changing their path along the way.
Absolutely. We always have mention this when I'm working with someone on relationships. I'll say, listen, this can go one of two ways. One, the whole relationship up levels, and it's beautiful because you're changing. Or you might realize this isn't working and the relationship ends. I have a client who, I should say former, she doesn't work with me now because she's happily in a relationship. But when we were working together, she was trying to decide if this relationship she was in was working. She was having a lot of struggles with it. And we had, several sessions and it resulted in this relationship ending. She is in a very happy relationship now, 4 years. And she still emailed me from time to time saying, I attribute this relationship to our work. Now, did it end in them in the original relationship working out? No, it wasn't meant to. She woke up and had insight and said, you know what? We're not on the same page.
Yeah.
But then she is able to leave that and feel confident in ending it and then is now in a very happy relationship. So these things can go one of two ways, right?
Oh, 100%. And I think that our mind, it does a lot to protect us. Probably when you're in an unhealthy relationship like that, the unknown is scarier to the mind than the unhealthy relationship that you're in, because at least what's there.
Yeah.
Sounds like that's what EFT was helped create that shift from her mind to her body so she can listen and trust herself. She can take those steps.
It's really incredible. Yeah.
We were talking before we started that you have started incorporating human design into your session. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about human design. Not only that, but why human design? How does that get incorporated with EFT? Yeah, so please tell us more about that.
Oh, I'd love to. Human design, I stumbled upon myself and found it so interesting when I learned my type. I listened to some podcasts on it and found it so helpful. I felt like it really understood me. I was like, I really can get myself. I was shocked at how accurate it was. In this podcast I listened to, I reached out to the woman who had the show and she was doing a training in human design. I said, I've got to take this training. I completed that. It was 15 weeks. And I'm also doing ongoing classes. I love incorporating it into EFT because human design basically tells you your very essence, the essence of you before bad things happen, before painful experiences or just life. It's you at your very essence. I think what's so neat about that is we can look at that in these sessions. If someone says, I don't know if this is me or if this is just a product of things that have happened to me, this gives us a chart. If the listeners aren't familiar with human design, it's based on your birth time, your birthplace, and of course, your birth date. It's a very complex system, but very accurate and really telling us about you, your gifts, what you came here to do. I think with bringing that into the EFT, we can really show someone this is your essence. This is you before all this other stuff. I think that's really beautiful.
Wow, that's very interesting. Would you only pull that out for if someone is really blocked, for lack of a better word, with what's really truly them? Or is it something that you like to incorporate into all of your sessions or all your clients?
If they're open to it, I'd like to bring it into all the sessions. Some people may not. There is a element of human design that is astrology. It has these four pillars. It has Western astrology, the I Ching, the Hindu system, and the Kabbalah tree of life. It has these four pillars. Now, not everybody's open to that. Maybe EFT is already a little too out there for them, even though it's very scientific. Something that deals with birth date and birth time and things might be, if it doesn't resonate with the client, then it's not something I'll do. If they're open to it, which a lot of my clients have been, it's very helpful because it tells you about your energy system, how to best use your energy, tells you how you make decisions, and then also your gifts and things that might be hard for you. I think it can really help you in relationship and navigating through life, really knowing what you're good at and what might be challenging for you. It's just so helpful. And it's such helpful information to know and can really help the person. No, it's not something I just bring up if they're really stuck. I think the EFT on its own is such a powerful tool, but having this information is so great as an additional way for the client to really see the truth of who they are. This is you before all the things, or all the things you've been through.
That's a beautiful way to put it. I had my human design done a couple of years back, actually. And I remember I have I think it was an emotional center and manifesting generator 4-6.
Oh yeah, me too. I'm a manifesting generator too.
Beautiful. I love that.
Yeah.
I remember when she said that I have an emotional center. And I was like, really? I'm asking questions about it. She's like, are you emotional? I was like, no, I'm not emotional. And what I've learned since then is that I had a trauma response that I actually had to work through. And that shut myself off from a lot of my emotions. I wasn't feeling into my body. I wasn't noticing. I was literally living in the sympathetic state. My vagal brake was completely not functioning at all. I was in fight. But at a time when I had this done, I was just thinking, that doesn't make sense. But then over time with my own journey, I realized like, no, that actually is me. I just had a traumatic response that I was blocking those listening to my emotions and my feelings in my body.
I'm so glad you shared that. That is one of the things that's so great about human design is that where have I numbed out? Maybe some of my centers, which kind of equate if the listeners aren't familiar with the chakra system. Where have I shut down? I'm not feeling these things. Have I numbed out because I feel too much? A lot of different things there. It's just so layered and so beautiful. People can feel validated for how they're feeling, recognize their gift, and looking at, wow, I incarnated to do, I have a purpose here.
Yeah.
And how can I live out my gifts? I just think that's just gold.
It is.
And when I had my reading, I felt like it's, you already know it intuitively. And it was a way to spell out things that I'd already felt and experienced and to feel validated. And then also learn how to navigate through some of maybe my challenges. I think that's just great information. I'm just thrilled to weave these two things together if the client is open to it, of course. But good old fashioned EFT is really powerful on its own.
Old-fashioned EFT. I love that you put it that human design was validating because even with that one piece, me not completely understanding it the first time I had it done, I did feel it was validating, learning about how many manifesting generator functions, how to essentially take in energy and how to best utilize your energy. That all resonated. It felt very validated. You feel like you're being seen.
It's interesting that you are that because you're similar to me. You've had different careers. Yes, the quintessential manifesting generator does have multiple things. I'm a speech pathologist. I'm an EFT practitioner, a Kundalini yogi, also now a human design reader. Probably going to keep adding things. You're supposed to, I don't want to say supposed to, oftentimes manifesting generators have these multiple things. We're not hopping around to different careers because we're flighty. That's what gives us energy, is
Yes.
actually having multiple careers or interests or jobs, whatever you want to call it. I know
No,
how it works.
you put that so perfectly because I actually just posted in stories today that I'm really working on creating harmony of all these different things. I said, I'm a nurse, I'm a podcast host, I'm a Kundalini yoga instructor, and I'm a transformational health coach working with multiple clients right now. But with that said, it looks like they're all separate, but at the same time, they're all very much intertwined and
Yeah.
interconnected. That's the other piece of manifesting generators. You're not like flipping from one job to the next or one career to the next. I feel like you have this energy to take on these different modalities
Yeah.
and you find the connection that weaves them together to help streamline whatever you're here to do.
Yeah, because they are all interconnected, um one of my instructors was an attorney, but then also does human design and also is a coach. Look at that. And it's they call us multi-hyphenate beings. We're meant to have these different things. Let's say someone didn't know that. They might feel like, gosh, I've jumped around these different careers and I've never stuck with one career. Sometimes that can get frowned upon the outside world is, why don't you just stick with one thing? Why are you always doing all these different things? But that's how our energy system works. That's what keeps us excited. That's just one example of 100 I could tell you of what felt really good to learn. Say, oh, wow, this is actually what I'm supposed to be doing, is having these different
Yeah.
interests and careers. And I love that so much. So information like that, let's say I have a client that's coming to me because they want to change careers. Let's say they're miserable at their job and we're tapping to figure out their next move for them to get clear on what to do. The knowledge of their human design and their energy system could really benefit figuring out, what are my gifts?
Mhm.
How can I use these and get the courage maybe to change careers or out of this current job and go to another one? That's an
Mhm.
example of how I would weave it in.
No, I think that's a really good example because I could see, especially with the pressure to work up the ladder and, do these certain steps and stay in this job. I could tell someone maybe going through EFT and if they may feel like they need to move out, but not trust it, even though it may come through. But I could see the human design, if they were like a manifesting generator or something like that, having that kind of help give them the courage and the confidence to not only can you trust yourself with what's coming through, this is also you at your core essence of who you're supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so great. I'm so passionate about that. Both of these modalities. It's fun.
Amy, this has just been a wonderful conversation. I absolutely love talking with you and talking about EFT and human design. If someone is curious and they want to work with you and they want to learn more, how can they contact you? Where can they find you?
Yes, of course. My website is called tappingfortruth.com. So tapping for truth. That's also my Instagram handle is at tapping for truth. If they're curious, I know they're just listening. If they want to see the tapping points, if you haven't seen it, I have lots of videos both on my website and on Instagram, so you can check it out. And they can email me there. You can directly message me from my website. I offer complimentary consult calls that people can book if they're just maybe hesitant or they want to know if we can help their particular problem. Absolutely. You can book a session or a 20-minute chat just to chat about what they'd like to work on, how EFT works, and answer any questions. That's really great. I like people to do that before a session if they're not familiar with it, just so they can feel comfortable and learn a little bit more before they dive in. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Amy. And everyone who's listening, if you're interested, please check out Amy at Tapping for Truth. Check out her videos.
I look forward from hearing from anybody that would like to learn more.
Send her a message.
Thanks for joining. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow, subscribe, and share with a friend. Want to learn more about a specific topic? Drop us a line on our website and we can explore it deeper with you.